Hello everybody, it is Michael Knipp, and this is another chance for me to talk about the books that I have read and the books that I want to read. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in May of 2021, what I thought of them, a little brief rundown, and then, of course, the books that I kind of want to read. Unfortunately, June sort of has taken me by surprise. I don't know how it happened so quickly, but it's almost June. In fact, it will be June when I post this video. Hello, future people. I planned on reading a bunch of books in May, but I didn't read that many. I read 1, 2, 5. I read 5. Dang it, I actually just filmed a segment where I was talking about Strange the Dreamer, but I cheated and counted Strange the Dreamer on last month's wrap-up, even though I didn't read it until this month. So not only did I waste some time recording that, I've already talked about Strange the Dreamer twice on this channel, which means that I only read 4 books this month. Anyway, the first book that I guess I will count towards reading this month, even though it was the second book that I finished this month, was Play Dead by Ted Dekker, which I also have a dedicated review for, which I will put up in the cards. But Play Dead by Ted Dekker was Ted Dekker's first adult thriller that he wrote by himself in a long time. He's been doing some stuff with his daughter, I believe. And it was really interesting because it was a science fiction book more than a thriller, in my opinion. It explored a lot of themes relating to virtual reality, that technology, what it could do to mankind. I thought it did a pretty good job at that. It also escalated into a little bit more of a thrillery plot with some suspense and stuff. The problem was that because it was a Ted Dekker book, Ted Dekker is a Christian author, he tried to sort of tie in Christian themes in a way where I think he really flubbed it up in a major way, and I think that he had some really bad examples of Christian themes in his book. And I can't talk about that really without spoiling things. I do talk about it in the second half of that review where I just sort of have to spoil certain things to talk about my problems with the Christian theming in Play Dead. Just as a standalone science fiction thriller, I do think it was interesting and engaging throughout, but because of my own personal beliefs and convictions, I had to have this specific beef with it. I guess you can go watch that video if that's something that you care about. The next 2 books that I read this month were both books from the Dresden Files. And if you had watched my TBR for May, you will realize the Dresden Files did not show up anywhere on that list. I was supposed to read a bunch of other books in May. I went through a bit of a reading slump where I didn't care. I was really struggling to care about anything. I had some stuff going on at work, some stuff going on in my life, and I just couldn't get myself to read. And when I did try to read, I would fall asleep, and I was making 0 progress on anything. But the Dresden Files book, let's see, Blood Rites and Death Masks. I don't know what numbers these are. Dang it, Voxer! Anyway, I have the Dresden books just on hold perpetually at my library because they tend to have long holds. And then whenever they come in, I listen to them. The Dresden Files is not a series that up to this point I had any great investment in. It was sort of a book that would come in, they're very short, I would listen to them as a palate cleanser. There were things that I hate about them and things that I love about them. Specifically, some of the ickiness where it talks about the book comes across as sexist on multiple levels. I don't like that stuff. I find that stuff incredibly irritating and obnoxious sometimes. Some of the other stuff, I think the humor is sometimes hilarious, sometimes not. I think that over time, that series has started to flesh characters out to the point where now, after finishing these 2 books, Blood Rites and Death Masks, I think I'm actually invested in this series in a much more major way than I ever was before. It took the first, 6 books for me to care? There's 17 books in this series. I care now. I still have a lot of these frustrations, some of them more so than I had before. It's a series that I have this love-hate relationship with, but now I'm actually invested in the characters, and I'm still waiting on my library hold to come in. It's not like I'm buying these books or chomping at the bit to read them, but I'm excited to read them more than I was before. But also, because I was in a reading slump, then the majority of what I ended up consuming last month book-wise. The last book that I read this month that I really focused on finishing for this month, it was the actual Patreon buddy read for this month, was An Unkindness of Magicians. I really didn't know anything about this book going in, but it won the popular vote in my Patreon, and so I read it. It was an urban fantasy with a little bit of a mystery bent, some thriller elements happening, but it's in the present day, and there's this competition between magic houses on trying to determine the future leader. And I love certain aspects of what the story was trying to do, but I don't think I've ever read a book where I actually did care a little bit about what was happening, and I was interested in some of the stuff where I just completely did not connect at all with the book on a story level, really, or on a character level at all. I kind of was interested in what was happening, but I never felt the immersion level that I tend to feel with most books, especially books that I really enjoy. There was no one particular element of anything that was happening that made me really care. I probably would have DNF'd it if it wasn't this pick, and that's crazy because it's a very short book. Everything in the book goes by fairly quickly according to fantasy standards, but I wasn't feeling any of it. As far as I can tell when I finished this book, I don't think it was actually the author's first book, but it almost felt like a first book kind of feel where it didn't have the it factor that I would expect something that from what I can tell, is a book that people have talked about on BookTube fairly often. Like, I think it's a fairly popular and well-liked book. It really didn't feel that way to me at all. It was a book of constant telling me what was happening and never letting me see what was happening in a way that really tried to pull me in. I don't know. I feel bad because I know people love this book, but I very much did not like it. And I think that actually makes like the first time that I super didn't like a book that my patrons picked. So I guess screw you guys. You did this. But also I love you. Probably an honorable mention for my TBR this month is I was supposed to read Jade War in a buddy read with some friends, and I dropped the ball. I need to finish it still. Everyone else is done, and they've talked about it, but Jade War was a book that hit me real hard in the slumps, and I knew that I had to finish an Unkindness of Magicians before the end of the month, so Jade War got put on temporary hold. I'm going to be picking it up soonish, early this next month. I do want to finish Jade War. I know it's a very popular book, but if I'm being honest, so far, I think the first half or so, I'm not loving it as much as most people love it. I'm not hating it, but it's so slow, and so it feels, I hate to do this when I'm only halfway done with the book, because things can wrap around and prove me completely wrong. But to the point that I'm at in the book, it feels extremely meandery, like the author was just discovery writing and they kept it all in, and it doesn't feel like things that are happening have an actual purpose short of just spending time with the characters, which I know is a thing that I've talked about in other videos where I'm like, hey, I want the books to just spend all the minute time with the characters, but I don't care about, I don't know, there's moments of this book that have really got me. And I'm like, oh, dang, I can't believe this happened. And I'll be hooked. And then a bunch of nothing will happen. And so we'll see. I'm going to continue with Jade War. I don't want to be a hater. I'm going to continue with it. I know a lot of people love it. I'm hoping I do too when I'm done. Now let's talk about the other books that I'm hoping to read in June. First of all, there's this book called Rabbits by Terry Miles. I talked about this a little bit in my TBR last month, but I'm going to do it again here. Rabbits was originally an audio drama by this Pacific Northwest Stories collection of like, not cinematic universe, but like audio universe. It's a bunch of audio dramas that take place sort of in the same universe with some characters that cross over between them. And Rabbits is probably my favorite entry into this series. It's about an augmented reality game, which is like this science fiction, crazy thriller version of a scavenger hunt, maybe? But like it's a game and a bunch of people are playing it online and it involves craziness. Well, the audio drama is amazing, and this book, which I now know is not an adaptation, it's a standalone that exists in this same universe. It's coming out June 8th, and I want to have a review for it ready for release date. So I'm going to try to bust my butt and finish Rabbits. I am hoping to love it because I absolutely love that audio drama. Another independently / self-published book I wanted to read was a book called The Library of the Dead. I'm going to try to get this one done this month, but I'm not going to make any major promises just because I've been struggling. I've been slumping. But I'm hoping to read The Library of the Dead. I know very little about this. It was kind of a cover / I remember reading the first like 2 sentences of the summary and said, that sounds like something I'll check out. I want to read some more self-published indie published stuff. So I picked up The Library of the Dead. We'll see how that goes if I get to it. Now the books that I sort of have to read this month. And that sounds a little mean, because the first one is Project Hail Mary. That was the Patreon buddy read pick for this month. There was a lot of shenanigans going on in the Patreon section of my Discord. There's a Discord down below, linked. Everybody can join it, and there's a lot of fun discussions that happen there. There's also a separate section of the Discord that happens just for the people on Patreon, and it was a journey to get to this month's pick. There was a lot of ties that ended up in us having to like create an entirely new voting system regulations because we just kept tying. There was a lot of like faux drama and a lot of like semi-trash talking back and forth. It was very fun, but it turns out that we're going to read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir this month, and I am looking forward to that. I actually think that sounds awesome. I loved the movie The Martian. I never read the book. I have read an Andy Weir short story that had something to do with gambling and quantum physics. I think quantum math, quantum computing. That's what I'm looking for. That was a fun short story, but I am looking forward to Project Hail Mary. I don't know that much about it. I've heard some criticisms that it was too much like The Martian. I haven't read The Martian. It's been a while since I saw the movie, so that sounds kind of cool. And then the book that I have to read that maybe I'm not as enthusiastic for, Amanda and I sometimes like to do videos together, and we've recently sort of started copying Alan from the Library of Alexandria and doing challenge videos. People thought it would be funny. If I failed a challenge, I would take a punishment. Alan, one of his first punishments, I think his first punishment was he had to vlog reading A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Everyone sort of knew he was going to hate read it, and so they thought it would be funny if he vlogged his experience. And it was funny. It was very enjoyable for us, not for him. People picked the same punishment for me, but I don't know if I'm trying to determine, did people think I was just going to like hate vlog it the way Alan did? Or did people secretly try to subvert the hate reading process? Did people who saw my Twilight series back in the day, which was like, there's a lot of people that have come to this channel since I've had my Twilight series. Is it possible that people didn't know that I sort of came around to defending and liking Twilight on a certain level, and they were trying to get me to do the Twilight treatment of A Court of Thorns and Roses? I tweeted out that I was going to do that, give the Twilight treatment, as it were, do a similar video for A Court of Thorns and Roses as I did for Twilight, and the response seemed positive. So I'm thinking that some people might have voted for A Court of Thorns and Roses, thinking I might enjoy it similarly to the way that I did Twilight. And I am curious. I'm cautiously optimistic. Do I think I will love it? No. Do I think I will despise it? Also probably no, but you never know. Or maybe you've read it and you do know. I don't. On top of that, maybe a Dresden will come in. Maybe I'll try to finish out one of the 10 billion series that I've started that I haven't read yet. Maybe I'll start some new series. Because frick, I don't know. I'm just trying to keep my reading enthusiasm going, and I don't want to ride the slump. Never ride the slump. I want to do what I can to get out of it. And yeah, that's what I have on this month's docket. Something worth noting, I never read Iron Gold. I should read Iron Gold. I loved the Red Rising trilogy, but it seems really big, and I don't want it to continue my slumpism. So we'll see if I can maybe also fit in Iron Gold this month, maybe substitute it out for the Library of the Dead. I don't know. What do you people out there in Bookland think I should do? Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. If you're excited for any of the books that I mentioned that I want to read this month, please let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps the algorithm know that people liked watching this thing. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, but you would like to see the videos for the books that I talked about, please consider subscribing. And if you hit the bell, you'll get notified when I post those videos. As I mentioned, there's a Discord down below. Everybody can join it and have discussions with me and my new group of online book friends. And if you'd like to support the channel financially, there is also that Patreon option, as well as a merch store. There may be some new merch store options coming. We will see. Anyway, I love you guys all so much. I can't wait to see you again in the future. Until next time, go be excellent to each other. Bye.
Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.